everyone, welcome to another edition of Thoughts on Education. And as always, we have eminent speakers with us to share with the views and all. But today we have a very special guest, and you might have seen her in our previous webinars. And we have Dr. Supriya Pattanayak, who is presently the Vice Chancellor of the Centurion University of Technology and Management. And to be really honest, her entire experience and achievement has a very long list. I'll try to make it short as much as I can. So she has an extensive teaching, research and policy experience and research interest in the field of gender and development issues, social pedagogy work in different contexts. She is an industry licensed person from RMIT University, Melbourne, Australia, and also a research fellow at the St. Petersburg State University, Russia. She has several publications to her credit, the latest being the book edited along with Dr. Margaret Kumar entitled Positioning Research 2018, and has worked with NGOs, multilateral and bilateral agencies, and federal and state government universities in India and Australia, and the list of achievement further goes on. Very warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And good to have you back with us on another show. So it is always a pleasure to have you, an honor to have your views expressed with us. So I believe a lot of viewers who are actually watching this have a lot to take away today. So knowing, ma'am, for this huge amount of experience that you have put into education, I want to know why education industry is the best industry to work in.
So first of all, good afternoon to the audience. Good afternoon to you, Indranil. Thank you to Collegedunia for inviting me to be here. It's always an honor. I work with Centurion University of Technology and Management, Odisha, and it's only for the past 5 years. So I've been in all those roles that you have mentioned previously. So it has been, but let me tell you, while I have done a lot of things, I've always ensured that I have kept in touch with education. So I have always been teaching in Australia, in India, even if it's a semester, it's a course, something like that, I've always continued to do while I was working in the industry as well. So that is my link to education. And I think that why is an education, being in education, such a fascinating thing for me is because it helps us to shape the future, the career, the lives of future citizens of this world. And I think that's what is really important, that I'm able to do that. And in order to do that, you require a lot of passion and compassion. And I think that's what gives us the strength to do what we are, because we work in some very remote geographies. And so therefore, it is what we do. I think it also gives us the opportunity to impact society, because of the way, it helps us to kind of steer the careers of students. And the last thing I would like to say is it gives us a great opportunity to reinvent ourselves. And I think that's what is really important, because we know that society is changing each day and we have to be relevant all the time. So I think that's what makes it really important, relevant all the time, while bringing in all the experience that we have gathered, so that, we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that's what is important. So I think it gives us that great opportunity to reinvent ourselves. And
again, as I said, this is being a very profound interaction. And off the bat, ma'am, it's always an inspiration to know such experiences. And I bet education does give us that leverage on the area to expand ourselves in different horizons, and which was clearly understood from what you said. And coming back to our discussion, which we already had before during one of our webinars, I want your thoughts for these particular viewers who are right here. How critical and beneficial are the recommendations of the new education policy to improve the quality of education in India?
So I think this is just topical because it's the right time. It's also the time of the pandemic, and we are facing a lot of issues. But I think we need to acknowledge one thing, and that is that overall the quality of education is not very great in our country. So I think we need to acknowledge that, and so that we can And one of the main reasons for that is because it's not a level playing field. It's not a level playing field for institutions. It's not a level playing field for students out there. It's not a level playing for teachers who have limited resources in different places. So I think that if we acknowledge that and if we go from there, and the new education policy is trying to address some of these issues. So I think that's a step in the right direction. Now, coming to the more specific issues of the new education policy, I think there are three things that I would like to focus on. One is, first of all, the institutions. I think the institutions that we are talking about, they are governed by different systems. And so what the new education policy is trying to say is that no, they're now going to be all on the same page. And we're going to kind of not have these affiliations. We're not going to have standalone institutions. They're all going to be merged. So that's one great thing, I think. The second aspect of it that I would like to talk about is, in the institutions, I would also like to say that the institutions are looking at enabling the collation of credits through different kinds and have them transferred from one institution to the other. So these are the kinds of things which are also being enabled by these institutions. Now, coming to the academics, and I think that is a real critical part of it, is that they are talking about coming together of the vocational education, the teacher education, and professional education. I think that is a very important aspect. Now, yesterday, we are on a lot of webinars, but when we are saying that, okay, we know that there should be more of technology now because of the pandemic situation, there should be more technology in teaching and learning. Who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? There's an assumption that teachers know it. But look, a long way to go. So I think this is again another really good move to say that they also need to come together. The other thing that which is also being talked about, which I think in some ways we are, as Centurion University, we are forerunners in, is the integration of skills. And I think that is so critical because again, now in the present scenario, it's a bit of a challenge how we are going to deliver it. But the fact remains that it is important that students actually get their hands dirty. Education has to be practice oriented. It has to be skills based. It has to be hands on. It has to be experience based. So unless a student has done it during their education, they are going to find it very difficult post or in their employment, where actually we find a lot of statistics which says that most graduates are actually unemployable. So eventually they have to get retrained when they go to industry. So we are trying to bring that training into the university so this is one of the things. I think the other thing is also getting together, the more of the facilitating institutions, be it the National Education Technology Forum that the education policy is talking about, or the National Mission on Mentoring. And I think these are two very important bodies because I decided to specifically mention these two because they would also, a lot of these institutions, we are a young institution ourselves, but there are a lot of fledgling institutions which would require a lot of support, a lot of hand-holding. So these two institutions would play a very significant role in the future. I think the only other thing that I would like to mention is the new education policy's focus on research. And I think that is one area which traditionally the universities, the old universities have been focused on it, but the more newer universities which are coming in are, have varied capacity and all that. So I think that focus on research is going to be a very important one. And the fact that research is going to be so well resourced, that is again the other thing. Of course, it's going to mean different things for different institutions. And I think that's where it's going to be a bit of a challenge. because who's going to get this funding? And I think that is the thing. The only other thing I would like to point out is that an extension of the skills is that there is a focus on innovation, enterprise, and production. So, and I think somewhere that is also a very good focus that we are getting into, because universities should also aspire to, actually innovating and actually leading to production. See, if you look at the Western world, most of the research that industry wants is outsourced to universities. Here, it is not the case. We would like to bring in the similar culture here, where we bring in the problems which the industry is facing, and let the universities do their job in researching it, and then providing the solutions. So I think that prototyping, that all that kind of thing has to happen at the level of the university, and so that it gives them also the confidence to contribute better to society. So I think that is my take on the education policy.
So yet again, ma'am, it's profound as usual, and I would say usual because this is our second time interacting yet again. And going on those lines, rather, let's take the entire conversation towards Centurion University, right? And you said you would be implementing these policies, which is Centurion University is adapting to them as well. So I actually want to get into a lighter question. So being the Vice Chancellor of Centurion University of Technology and Management, ma'am, what is your philosophy of leadership, and how would you actually describe your leadership style, ma'am?
An interesting question. At a personal level, I find leadership itself very problematic. But I think, having said that, in an institution, it's very important to take your team along. So I actually believe in a very democratic style, but which is also transformational, because as I said, we are actually trying to push the boundaries of education in many ways at Centurion University. So it has to be transformational. Now, when I say democratic style, I also recognize that there are a lot of limitations. When you have to take your team along. Yes, you have different capacities in the team, but the problem arises when you have to take quick decisions. And that's where, we are a people who are in a hurry, because we recognize that we cannot, the pace at which things are going, and the young university that we are and what we have achieved, we would like to actually move at a even greater speed and do things that we're supposed to do today as of yesterday. So, it's becoming, so therefore it is a difficult thing. It's a challenge. How do we take the team along? How do you remain democratic? And how do you take quick decisions? So that's why I said at the outset that it's problematic. But having said that, I think so far, so and I think I would like to tell you that, because at the end of the day, who are our faculty? Who are our teachers? They come through a system of education, which is what we have today. So, what we are getting out of them is what they have been taught and what the system has allowed them. We are expecting so much, I should say exponentially greater things out from them. So it requires a lot of professional development. It requires a lot of capacity building and all that. And we also know that one of the biggest challenges that most of us have is how do we address the resistance to change? So I think there is a lot of that, and it's bound to happen. It's not something that is unexpected. So we do have to work hard to get our team sharing the dream. Having said that, I'll tell you that most of our faculty who are here are here because they share a dream. It's not because of any other reason. It is because of a shared dream. As I told you, we work in very remote geographies. We work with very difficult kind of a client base. Sometimes they're first generation learners. Sometimes they're people who have come back to studies after a period of lull. So all these kinds of issues. So because of that, I think it's a real challenge. And I think seeing all this, I think our faculty are doing very well. So, but it requires a lot of effort from everybody to rise to the occasion.
Coming to that entire, where you said, pushing the boundaries. So obviously a shared dream with CUTM, the entire family of CUTM has, and we have seen the growth and enhancement by pushing the boundaries over the years. And it is not something that, that I can mention in a light note, but it has been like evident in front of our eyes, the way we have seen Centurion University grow over the years exponentially. So first and foremost, I really want to know, were there any significant challenges that you faced in terms of the growth, and how did you actually motivate your team for this enhancement and growth that we have witnessed?
So I think again that's getting very personalized, but it's really a good question because I think I believe that people also learn from one's experience, so others also learn from your experiences. So as I told that, we have this, this is a 10-year-old university. And at the outset, the dream of our promoters were two academics. For once, a university which is promoted by academics, was that how do we actually impact the local economy? What is it that we can do in the remote geographies? What is it that we can do to impact local economies? So while we started the university, we also at the same time started a few what we call our social outreach entities, which sit on the margins of the university, right? And they are different formats. So some of them are for-profit companies, some are not-for-profit companies, some are Section 25, all kinds of things. So that I don't want to get into that, but they sit on the margins and they work as our labs in some ways. So we have always believed in this land to lab and lab to land. So what is it that we can do? We can learn from that, and we then take those lessons back to the classroom. So this is how we worked. So these social outreach entities which sit on the margins were actually providing some services which were akin to the university, but not the core functions of the university. So for example, we have one which is called the Gram Tarang Employability Skills Training. So they actually provide skills to school dropouts. So like I said, so they are there on the margins. They provide an additional area. So what it does, it tries to create a pathway for students who have dropped out of the education system to come back into it if they so desire. And that is why we created these kind of entities. So the idea is, how do you impact the local economy? That is the whole thing. The remote geographies to first generation learners, just think of all that. So that is how we created this ecosystem, which actually kind of helps the dreams turn into fruition. And that's these social entities, outreach entities, which sit on the margins, actually are not entirely independent, because they also share a lot of resources with the university. So whether it is workshops, whether it is labs, whether it is the industry partnerships, so all these kinds of things, they have their own industry partnerships, but those actually come in handy to the university. So these are the kinds of ways that we actually look at it on the whole, and this is the kind of impact that we look for. So that is how the promoters thought of when they envisaged the university, or when they left their last job at a premier institution and came to start this. This is how they envisaged it. And that's where we are only trying to take that dream to the next level, where we are saying that our students and our faculty should actually be able to now move from that, okay, we have now got that that level of people who have dropped out of schools and who have got all those kinds of things. They have reached some level. But what about those who are aspiring for a higher level? They've gone into BTech, and what do they do after that? Or they've got into an MBA. What do they do after that? So we are trying to now address that level of that category of people as well, and that's where our faculty play a critical role. So we are doing a lot of as I said, a lot of professional development in-house, and I must say that, you know, if our faculty chooses to go anywhere, then they will stand a very good chance, because they have got a very good training ground. You know, so they come through this, and and good, so be it. It's good for them. You know, it only adds to the pool of citizenry in our country who come out with great skills. You know, and that's what we are trying to do. So that's how we are heading towards that. And as I said, our faculty are trying hard. We are trying hard as well. We are also trying to ensure that we get people from industry, very high-level researchers who can work as mentors. So that is how we are trying to go about it, because we do understand that even us on our own, we shouldn't be navel-gazing. So what is it that's happening outside, and let's get people who can actually provide greater support in taking this to the next level.
And the aspect of this entire thing, like, how do you keep them motivated for these hard work and challenges?
You know, the thing is that I think one of the things, as I said, is that there's a shared dream, there's a passion. So there are lots of people who are already motivated, and I think I don't want to deny that. So they're coming here because they're very motivated. But I think in terms of coming in here and us asking them to put so much of hard work, and we have to think of different ways of incentivizing them, of recognizing their achievements, of encouraging them to attend conferences and those kind of things. So we have also got some faculty who have gone to do their PhD overseas, who are, could, suppose get them some scholarships. We also have exchange programs for our students and faculty. So, different ways of keeping your students and faculty motivated. Yes, there is. I think, probably the biggest challenge for us is that, and I don't want to get into some of those issues, but always a remuneration is a big issue. So how can we do better on that front? We keep trying.
So I'll come to a question which is basically for the students who are watching this, and rather aspirants who are figuring out. It's a very basic, generalized question. The USP, if they had to know the USPs of Centurion University in a brief way, what would you tell them?
So I think the biggest thing is that, what I started off with, the hands-on, practice-based, skill-oriented teaching and learning. Critically, that is one of the main things. The other thing that I would talk about is that we as a university aspire to be a university that looks at impacting society by improving the production, the productivity through innovation and entrepreneurship and technology, products and services. And I think if that is, and we are heading towards that, we are moving in that direction. And if we can, with the support of industry and with the kind of engagement of students and faculty, I think we can get there. We can get there.
So so understanding Centurion University of Technology and Management as a name, right? Technology and management. So there are aspirants in both sectors.
Yes.
Be tech engineers and there's management sector. So what would you say that the top qualities either of these aspirants should have to survive in this industry?
So first of all, I mean, let me tell you, other than technology and management, we also have a lot of other courses. I understand what you're saying. But I just want to make it clear, because this question relates to all the other fields as well. So I'm just trying to make it clear that we have agriculture, for example. We also have allied health sciences. And I think, yes, the kind of question that you're asking actually relates to everything. The qualities that a student should possess to survive in the industry. Right? So I think the fact remains that they have to have, one is, I mean, why do students come to a university? It's for an education, and either the education is for a job, it's for a higher education, or it is to start an enterprise of their own. And I think what we at the university are trying to do is enable to do either one of these in the best manner that they can. And I think because while most universities probably focus on the job and the higher education, we specifically are trying to focus on the enterprise. And I think that is a very important aspect and a key selling point. So I think that the student who comes out should be not a job, aspiring for a job, but should be able to give a job to another person. And I think so that is what we are aiming for. And so the student goes out with a set of skills. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is whether it's a management, whether it's an engineering student, whether it's a agriculture, so they have to be skilled enough to be able and have the confidence to actually be able to take off on their own, and that is the main thing. We don't, we want them to dream big. We want them to see that turn into reality. So that's where we are heading towards. And so we actually are trying to, let me tell you now, some of the recent debates that we are having, okay, is that, suppose somebody is doing a science degree, right, is trying to study genetics or something like that. Now, what we see is that they really need to have computational skills. And I think no program or very few programs in our country actually seem to be giving that to a science graduate, because the tendency has been always to, let's outsource this, so I don't do it myself. Now, if you have the skills to do it yourself, you're just opening up so many avenues for yourself. And I think that is the whole idea, is to give them the skills that opens up several opportunities for them. And I think that's what students from Centurion will take to the market out there. They'll have all these skills that will enable them to do a whole number of things and not limit themselves. The potential is immense. It's enormous. What is it that they're going to make of it?
Yeah.
Right? So we give them the tools.
Yes. And in terms of that, I think it's basically versatility. And, it's not just CUTM makes students industry ready, but it's industry ready and beyond to conquer any field that actually that person finds his or her niche at. And that is something I really appreciate. And colleges and universities should, I believe, should be like that everywhere. And that would actually standardize our education to a whole new level, honestly. And going towards another personalized question, again on a light note, rather, I would say, ma'am, how do you maintain a the healthy relationship that we know from students and all, that they can interact with the higher staff and everyone? So how do you maintain this healthy relationship with the students?
So, I think, one of the things is that, as administrators, as policymakers, as faculty, I think we have to shift our own thinking from a teaching to learning. We have to move to that. If we move to that, we become co-learners. And as long as we become co-learners, I think we'll have a very healthy relationship. The problem with us is, and I think I don't want to call it a problem, but traditionally, you see, the education system, which is based on a power relationship between the teacher and the student. So how do we reverse that? A healthy relationship can only happen when you actually don't have a hierarchy, right? So that's when I said the only way you can do it is to shift that, really have a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift to move from teaching focus to a learning focus. And if we do that, I think it will make a lot of difference.
So basically, somewhere where there is no hierarchy and students can feel open in terms of expressing their own thoughts and getting the platform that they deserve in terms of any problem or issue they face. When the teachers are very much open to, hold their hand and actually help them out.
Yes, and to this end, it requires a lot of shift in the pedagogy also. So, for example, we have actually recently we went through a whole big exercise because we had some time after the pandemic, and we put together all our courseware now, which is available for public to see. But more than that, we started defining how is it that we would like teachers to deliver this. And one of the things we said is, let's get into a flipped class mode. So how is it that you shift where the student actually, prepares prior to the class. Okay. And actually the class becomes a place where you facilitate only responding to any problems that a student has on the lesson. It doesn't become an actual teaching, like I'm not teaching you this, but you prepare and you say, okay, I did not understand this. And you come in and you ask us. So we as teachers, we don't remain teachers, we just become facilitators to that learning. And so that's why I said it requires a shift from teaching to learning, but it also means that everything that accompanies it also needs to undergo some shift. So your pedagogy has to change, your teaching material has to change, the kind of tools that you use has to change, everything has to change. And I think that's where we are heading now.
And I believe students who are watching this are eager to be a part of this UTM family, to know these processes. And I really think it is profound. It is a profound way of actually interacting with the students and making sure they're ready. And so, ma'am, knowing that, CUTM, coming back to that question where I asked about the growth of Centurion University. So we have seen the growth all these years. So I want to know, you have mentioned a bit what you are trying to adapt to the NAP and everything. I want to know what concrete plans you have for Centurion University for the coming few years.
So I think what we want. I guess the thing that I mentioned some time back is that we would like to make a local social and economic impact or some kind of transformation through innovation and enterprise, and using in technology, services, delivery, products, all those kinds of things. But in order to do that, and I said, in order to do that, or by doing that, we hope to get into the top 50 NIRF, hopefully, maybe top 10, if possible, and also try and get into international ranking. So, and I think that's what we are heading towards. Although, I mean, it's not so much of a race, but it's more of trying to achieve what you set out to, and then the results coming from that. As a result, you get all those kinds of things. That's why I said I'm not saying that this will emerge out of that, but your work will speak for itself. So I think what we are really trying to do is, and I tell you, we have been looking at these rankings for now several years, and we have always wondered that why is it not a lot of them have been taking into account the impact that you make in the local community. It's always about what you are doing as a university, but what is that leading to? And now we are seeing that even the ranking institutions are heading in that direction. They are looking at what is the impact, social impact that you're having. And I think that's why I said, so in some ways we have been a front runner, because we have always looked in those terms that we have never aimed at ranking. We have always said that, look, how is what we are doing impacting the community? So in fact, when I say practice oriented, I'll just give you another example, a very small example. But for example, we have our students who go out into the local community, and if they're pursuing, say, something like an electrical or a civil branch or something like that, they go to the nearby villages and they go and talk to people saying that, okay, do you have any appliances that require repairing? And they actually, or does your house wiring work? Or do you have a piece of paper which tells you what is the dimensions of your land? So they actually go and then do this. So this serves two purposes. And one of them is actually, okay, using the skills that you've attained here. But the other is actually this whole notion of communicating, negotiating, building relationships. So those are the kinds, and by doing that, building confidence. And those are the kinds of things which are so intangible. How do you measure those? But it has had such tremendous impact on, especially as you go, you look at diploma students, you look at ITI students doing this kind of work. They get a level of confidence which is beyond compare. And I think that's what when I say social impact, I say that is what we've done. Or our allied health students, for example, go set up a clinic, they go and do all the tests, they draw blood, panchayats. Never do they see the doctor, never do they see anybody coming. Here now it's the students who are going and doing this. So this is a kind of, this is what we've aimed for. And we are now trying to actually help our students actually do that, so that they eventually get that kind of confidence and ability to do things. And also know that they are contributing to community building, to nation building, to being a global citizen.
Ma'am, yet again, thank you for your views, and I mean, it's very unfortunate that we are nearing to the end of our interview as we're short on time. And so it's basically, I don't want to part away from this conversation rather than this interview. I would say it is a conversation, right? And I don't want to part away. It always feels like a beautiful conversation where I get inspiration, get profound knowledge, enrich myself with wisdom, and then go off to be a better person. So, but yet again, as I said, it's unfortunate that we have to come to an end to this interview. So, but while we are parting ways, ma'am, I would want you to, give any suggestion and thoughts you would like to give to the current youth and aspiring students?
So I think there are a few things that students need to learn and or need to know or need to engage with. And I think one is the fact that they have to be learners. We all are learners, and learning is a lifelong process. So I think that is one big take home that people have to have. The second, I think, are the very old virtues of patience. We kind of lose sight of that because everything today is a quick fix. So you cannot learn everything about climate change in one day, that kind of thing. So you need to have a lot of patience, a lot of desire to learn. And I think the third important thing I say is that you have to and I kind of keep on saying this because it's very important for students to know this, is that you have to align yourself with some of the global goals. So you have to understand what is it that we are working towards. Why is it? Which direction do we want to go? Do we want? How do we ensure that everybody is included? How do we ensure that people have access to healthcare? How do we ensure that people have access to education? What do we do to reduce poverty? So these are some of the larger questions, and I know a lot of students don't think about these issues, but we also find that there are 8-year-old climate warriors and 13-year-old climate warriors. So I think it's also important that we tell our students that they should actually think about these issues and they should internalize some of these issues. That will help them to be, and I keep thinking of what better way to explain about what we would like a future citizen to be like. And I think that's what are some of the characteristics that I would want my students to go out with. So that's the only thing that I would like to say. And I think you have to have a lot of passion. You have to have a passion for all these things. To be a learner, you have to have a passion. You'll have to question things. You have to have that critical thinking ability. All those kinds of things. So that is some of the things that some of the characteristics that we would want all students everywhere to have. Yes.
Thank you yet again, ma'am, for your views and thoughts. And as always, it's an honor and a privilege to have you with us on our platform. And for the students, I know that you have a lot to take away from this interaction. And if you want to know more about Centurion University, visit the microsite in Collegedunia or go directly to their website, and you'll get all the information there. And thank you again, ma'am. Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Indranil. That was wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am.